Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Getting Hammered. I'm your host, Mary Catherine Ham. I am here with my co-host, Vic Mattis of the Washington Free Beacon. We are your morning show for any hour. We got some news today. Columbia is a great place to go to school. We'll hear more about that. The White House Correspondents Dinner, just full of debaggery, as always. I am going to check in, and, this is a curveball for Vic, but I feel like we need to cover Kristi Noem a little. So maybe the earmuffs for the kids on that part of the show. And a little bit of men's fashion. But before we get to any of that, shall we see what's going on with Vic? How are you?
Hello, Mary Catherine. Doing fine, all things considered. I'm happy to report my daughter's musical went off, was a big smash.
Nice.
Last week, I'd never seen Newsies before, which is the musical.
Oh my gosh, you didn't tell me she was in Newsies. I would have come to this.
You know Newsies?
Oh, every word of it.
Oh my gosh. I had no idea you were the king of New York.
I indeed. This is a real elder millennial milestone.
Okay, yeah.
Newsies.
Explain how you know this. Were you in it, or had you seen a movie?
I saw the movie in the theater.
Wow, the one with Christian Bale?
Oh yes. Oh. In fact, that was my introduction to Christian Bale, and let me tell you, as a 14-year-old girl, I was like, "Yep, that guy's a star.
Congratulations."
That guy's destined for greatness.
I think you were one of 10 people who saw it in the theater. Yeah,
it did not do well.
It did not do well.
However, it was a bit of a video classic, I think, for people of my age.
That's what they say. Because
it did come out on video, or it played on the Disney Channel, and it was just, chock full of dancing, singing heartthrobs. This is pre-boy band America, right? We didn't have that at the moment.
Yeah,
we were in that. We were between the Beatles and the Monkees, and NKOTB had faded, and we hadn't gotten NSYNC and Backstreet Boys yet. We had the Newsies right in the middle.
Is that right? I didn't realize they filled in the void after New Kids on the Block went into the decline. She was very good, my daughter, about not telling us anything about what her role was. She said she had a couple lines, but she was terrific, and she played a friend who, at the end, their version is called Newsies Junior, technically. So there's a version that's more kid-friendly for this kind of a middle school production. And she plays a friend whose father owns the Trib, and so they can provide the presses because they're going to get the story out. And the other thing is she had a different part of the ensemble cast number at the end where she does in King of New York, and then the other one, I forget the big one where they raise the banner or whatever it is.
And she has the banner.
That's a Carrying the Banner. Right. It's very catchy. I never heard these songs. They're catchy in a late 80s, early 90s way, but very classic, sort of happy times New York. And she did a little tap number, she and a friend, because they could do the tap part. And I didn't know, I assumed everybody was doing the same thing because I'm only looking at her. So, you know how, as a parent,
of course,
you're just fun. She's climbing up the rafters because she's got to do this thing there where she raises the banner up on stage and just making sure everything went off without a hitch. It was lovely. And for people who don't really know what is Newsies, I'll put it in let me just, the short of it is, it's Les Mis with newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I say. It's like Les Miserables with newspapers. It's based on this 1899 paperboy strike, and these kids, they form a union. And the villain, this is such a wonderful journalism musical.
How really
many of them? I don't know how many of them are there. And the villain is Joseph Pulitzer, which is very funny. And
real David and Goliath stuff.
It was, I got the idea of that, and it's very pro-union strike. But also, these kids are poor. And they hardly have, and they raised the prices, I think, of the newspapers. And the whole thing was they want to sell these papers, but they have to, whatever papers they don't sell, they have to keep. They cannot sell them back to there's no buyback option by the newspaper. And they have to actually put in money to get these papers to sell. So that was it. It's such a niche thing to turn into this big musical. And I thought, just the very idea of it it's so obsolete now in our time. That
oh my gosh. I wonder,
or girls?
You'd sort of have to explain to middle schoolers what the job of these young men ever was.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And they stand on a corner and they compete, and it's very competitive. And there's this whole thing about the Brooklyn crew,
Right.
And what I appreciated was the main actor, this kid who will probably try to go into Broadway because he seems to be a very big star and he's very tall. He went out of his way, and remember, we're in Northern Virginia, but he went out of his way to do the whole show with that fake sort of old New York accent.
Oh, I love it.
The New York
Yeah.
accent.
No, there's the whole Christian Bale floats in and out of it during
does he?
the cinematic production of Newsies.
Yes.
But there are others who nail it, who you might think they might actually been from New York. There's one character who's like, "Never fear, Brooklyn is here." That's like the only way he talks.
You're really good, Mary Catherine.
Well, speaking of accents, we should call ourselves out. A clarification and correction.
Oh, I was going to jump to the end. You want to put it up front?
You know what? Because we're doing accents now.
Okay, yeah. We
got called out rightly by several listeners because we didn't know whose voice the Vlasic stork was doing. And it is obviously Groucho Marx. And that is our bad. We messed that one up.
Yes, Mary Catherine, I usually like to give a shout out to the listener who provides us with the correction. So the shout out goes to every single listener who apparently knew that it was Groucho Marx. I forgot it was Groucho Marx.
I did too. That's a swing and a miss for us.
It is, but I get it. Wise guy, eh? Okay, that's the Three Stooges. I'm kidding. That was Three Stooges. I guess he would use the dill pickle as a cigar.
Yes.
All right, I get it. Okay.
Oh, right. Newsies. This is bringing back great memories. I love it. I know every word of it. And I also listened to the soundtrack to Newsies during a very 2,500-mile road trip I took with my young children.
Oh my goodness!
In 2000,
your kids all had to listen to the whole soundtrack.
No, they liked it.
Okay.
I was trying to figure out what was a thing that we could that was wholesome, that I liked to listen to, that they liked to listen to, and they got very into it. So they are pro Newsies as well.
You know what? And it's so funny, the line, kill the competition, sell the next edition. That's our mantra at the Free Beacon. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh my gosh, I can really relate to this story.
It's a pretty free speechy movie too, because they get past this sort of embargo on the news. The newsman who wants to do the right thing is being threatened by the ownership of the paper. They sort of get past it by using this old press. No spoilers. That's whatever.
Right. Anyway, it's a girl in this edition. It's a girl. She is.
You got to put a lady in there.
You do. There are many girls in flat caps. Because it's just the way it breaks down in the show. And it was a big ensemble. It was like 50 kids up there, which was apparently a nightmare in order to corral everybody for all these rehearsals. But it was great. We all saw it, loved it. Mary Catherine, how are you?
I am pretty good. I had a fantastic weekend. And sometimes when your weekend is so awesome, it's actually kind of a boring story because it's like, oh, I did all these fun things.
Yeah.
I know, but it's the weather was perfect. We went to the lake. The girls did some fishing. They did some swimming because it was actually warm enough to get in the water.
Yes.
The babies didn't swim. We'll get on that later this spring. They didn't do any swimming this time. I think my 2.5-year-old, I think, could learn to swim in a matter of weeks once we put her in the water, if she has the same inclinations as she did last summer, because she was almost there last summer.
So do they have no problems lake swimming?
No, they don't care. They used to, but they've adjusted. We had one incident where the dog went rogue and jumped in, tried to grab a bobber from a fishing pole. And I was like, oh dear, everything came out okay.
Okay, good. That would have been a nightmare.
But then we, as parents, made the decision that we were having such a good time and the weather was so wonderful.
It was.
That we were going to play hooky on Monday and stay there.
Oh.
Okay. And I was like, this is great. Partly because I love that move. But it's not, I would say it's not a characteristic move for my husband, right? But he's like, I like this. Let's do it, right?
You mean calling an audible like that?
Yeah. And so he's like, he's on board with this. In fact, I believe he pitched it. And I was like, yes, sir. I am here for that. And then
I'm sure the kids love that.
Oh, yeah. Except then I'm sitting around on Sunday and while we're fishing and enjoying the weather, and my oldest child, who like myself is not great at scheduling and planning, we have similar brain chemistry. Mm-hmm. She says to me, wait, we're gonna miss school tomorrow? And I was like, yep. And she's like, I think we have standardized testing.
Oh, no. And
I said, I'd like to pretend you didn't just say that. Because now I have to check.
Did they?
And then I did check, and I thought, you know what? There's a makeup day. No, Vic, there's not a makeup day. So instead of the glorious Monday off that I thought I might get to be responsible,
hmm
we got up at 6 and drove them back so they could go.
Mary Catherine, can I say this?
Yeah,
There's a reason they call them SOLs.
I know, right? Ugh, they don't matter.
Yeah.
They don't matter.
I know.
I
So you
don't
were,
think they.
sadly,
I don't
SOL.
think they matter, right? But
It's all for them to gauge how the state is performing, really, in the teachers. It's a gauge for the
yes.
teachers.
But there is a part where I like this school. The school does its
Sure.
job, unlike many schools,
Mhm.
and they have asked for a commitment from us. Another time.
That's
Another
okay.
time. It was funny to be foiled by myself. Like the
Yeah.
kid who's Steve like, you would imagine might remember this. The kid who's like me, I'm like, just let it slide, girl. Let it slide.
This is, well, I mean, you know, I imagine kids probably react in two different ways when they decide you're going to call an audible like that. And the one thing is, you're like, the one type's going to be like, yes, I don't care. That's it. Back
Yeah.
to the lake. And then the other's going to be, oh, I hate missing school. You know, what do I have? Homework, you know, catching up. I used to hate that if I was sick. It was like, what? On the one hand, you're home, but on the other hand, what am I missing?
I never missed school when I was a kid. It was
I would
very
get so
and
nervous.
my parents couldn't really take work off easily,
Oh,
and so that was just not really an option for us that often. And so we didn't miss school very often. Then
Yeah.
I got obsessed with having perfect attendance, so I never missed school.
That's right. That's a big thing for you.
I have since been radicalized on that by the COVID years. I'm like, does this matter every day? No, I don't think it does. In case you're wondering why absenteeism is up, it's because they taught us that it doesn't matter every day. So, at any rate, a more abrupt end to a wonderful weekend than I anticipated.
Oh,
However, we got in a lot of fun. So,
good.
good times. And I'm excited for just like, can summer just come immediately?
It's here.
I love it. It was so hot. All right. Now, things are getting pretty hot on those Ivy League campuses, aren't they, Vic?
Speaking of schools.
Well. Columbia University, where there currently are no physical classes, right? They've just gone remote because they can't handle the situation.
Yes.
The administration of the school, not the White House, continues to blow past deadlines to remove the encampments, the pro-Gaza, pro-Palestinian, mostly pro-Hamas, and other terrorist groups. Administrations have been unwilling to enforce their own rules, enforce their own deadlines. NYPD, with Eric Adams sort of rhetorically leading from the top, as maybe not instructed to do what they need to do here to remove folks who are occupying the quad and other places. Now they have begun occupying a central campus building at Columbia University. One day after the school asked them to voluntarily disperse from an encampment set up in support of Palestinians. Once inside, students chained and barricaded the doors. A crowd cheered as the facade was draped with signs reading Intifada and Heinz Hall, the latter a reference to Hind Rajab, a young Palestinian girl who was killed in Gaza in January. Hours later, the university's public safety department, this is NPR reporting, announced what amounts to a lockdown of the campus in Manhattan's Morningside Heights, with access restricted to essential service employees and students who live in residential halls on campus. Oh, it must be so nice to live there right now.
Yeah,
I mean, the
lovely.
poor students who would actually like to go to class right now, which is, I think, a thing that a lot of people miss. There's a lot of hand-wringing, particularly when encampments are shut down somewhere like University of Florida, somewhere like University of Georgia, which it was quickly because they said, no, you cannot be on North Campus. You're not allowed to stay here. You can protest, but you can't be here, and you can't be impeding other students. There's a lot of hand-wringing in the press and among liberals that those people's speech is being impeded and those people's freedom is being impeded. And I think there should be wide latitude for protest, even if it's disgusting.
Yeah.
I mean, college administrators don't agree with me on that ever, except for if it's this protest, but whatever. But the Columbia protests and encampments and assaults and breaking and entry and all these criminal things that are not speech are impeding other kids' freedom and speech, other students' freedom and speech, sometimes other people's safety in criminal acts.
Yeah.
Do something about it.
Okay, so first of all, I have great news for you.
Okay.
This just happened. President Biden, he just issued a statement to the protesters at Columbia who stormed the building. He said, don't.
Oh, well, that should fix it.
I'm kidding. It's all over now. They're dispersing. No, he didn't say that. Of course,
that is the doctrine.
yeah.
One thing I'll hand to the Biden administration.
Mhm.
A lot of there's whole books written about Bush doctrines and other doctrines,
Yeah.
Obama doctrine.
Yeah.
The Biden doctrine, don't.
Yeah.
I could write that book.
I, they should just say 4 more years. Don't, it's a real problem for a lot of people. When I'm watching this whole thing melt down, I mean, obviously we say this all the time. You give them an inch, you got to nip it in the bud. That's what they did in Florida and other places because, now they have a situation that they can't control. And it's a terrible indictment of the quote unquote leadership of Manouche Shafik, the president of Colombia, right? But
Right.
also, you mentioned Mayor Eric Adams.
Right.
What do you think Alvin Bragg's going to do to any protester that gets arrested?
And they know that, by the way. Colombia, as reported in the Free Beacon, has been sharing its notes on how to do this with other universities.
With other universities.
One of the things they note is like, hey, man, they ain't going to touch you. There's going to be no repercussions for this.
Right. And I also think, this is not... Joe Biden is not directly implicated, obviously, in these protests, but he has to take a leadership stand on this. And right now, only his spokesman, Andrew Bates, issued a statement that said it's wrong to forcibly enter buildings. And, the squad, Ilhan Omar's daughter, she was arrested. Then she was back on campus after she was arrested.
Even the guy who's on tape saying that all Zionists should die and that they're lucky he hasn't killed them.
Yeah.
Even that guy. He was seen back on campus.
Yeah, Kaimani James. And all these people and AOC, they have to take a position on this. And I'm very curious to see what it's going to be, because I think if they have anything critical to say about these protesters, it's going to pain them.
Of course.
And they're going to, and then, part of them is still thinking, I got to win these people over and make sure they vote for me. And, Biden's in a real pickle here. So, I mean, that's bad. But again, I have zero confidence, certainly, in the administrators at Columbia. I would also, by the way, I would fire the entire admissions office because it's a hard school to get into and it's expensive. And you let these kids in?
It's
really?
under a 4% acceptance rate.
Oh, come on.
And that guy, Kamani, is
really?
in with no problem.
Yeah. Can I tell you, I gave this some thought, and I thought, if I were put myself in the role of the protesters, one of the things I thought is, why not storm a building like Low Library in 1968? And sure enough, they're here at Hamilton Hall. Right. They have demands. I think they should expand their demands because Shafik wants to keep her job no matter what. It's clear now. Now she wants to keep her job. And so my demands, if I were these protesters, would be, number one, expunge all our records for anything about arrests and suspensions. Also 4.0 GPAs. Okay. And obviously divest from any of these ETFs, the exchange traded funds, right?
Right.
Google, Amazon, BlackRock, the small stuff. And kick all the Jews off campus. Because she might actually do it. Yeah. She might actually be like, well, if it does make them leave, maybe it's worth it. I'm only half joking because they might actually be considering, how much do we have invested? Maybe if that gets them to stop. It's horrendous. Yeah. It's absolutely horrendous. And it's just the idea, we're going to be suspended. How about expelled?
I know. Because a suspension, but it's this weird incoherent thing too, where it's this totally righteous cause, according to them. And frankly, in the past has led to, being admitted to Columbia to believe these things, to espouse these things. And so they believe this is a righteous cause that that has served them well up until now. And yet they don't want to show their faces. They don't want to be in the press. They want all the publicity with none of the consequences. Yeah. It was just it's an incredibly entitled movement. Just by way of contrast, in Athens, Georgia, the University of Georgia, 17 protesters were arrested on the campus after some students and Athens community members held a pro-Palestine demonstration on Monday. According to UGA spokesperson Greg Trevor, the Monday morning's encampment on North Campus Quad crossed a line and violated the school's policies. Just for everyone's information, this is day one of the encampment. Day one.
You have to.
If you are going to stay on campus, that is not complying with school policies. They have to notify them that they're going to be there. And they also are not allowed to impede other students. They're not allowed to use amplified sound. There's various ways that they are restricted. Time, place, and manner, not by content. Although I would argue, certainly.
Oh.
As Mark Penn, who was on Fox with me this morning, noted, if this were the Klan not letting Black students go to class at Howard, I think you would hear more from the White House and others about the content of these protests. And yet we don't hear very much about it because suddenly elite universities are all about free speech and defending it as soon as free speech includes condemning the Jews. It's a very
Well, I mean,
specific belief.
to be fair, they're not going after all the Jews, just the people who live in Israel, and I don't know how many of those people are Jewish. You talked about privilege, by the way, Mary Catherine. Right. A lot of the women, I'm not talking about Palestinians, I'm talking about white female counterparts in these protests. And you see some of them in the headscarves. How many of them also, normally protest against the patriarchy? Dude. Like, and now they're into the submission to God, the morality, the modesty.
It doesn't matter.
Really?
They're so ignorant. It's really embarrassing. Yeah. There was a viral video the other day of a set of two women on one of these campuses who they were asked, like, why are you protesting? Like, what has, I can't remember which university it was, but what has the university done that means you must do this? And they couldn't explain even the investing in.
No, I saw that.
They had no idea. And then,
but they're there because everybody's there.
Right. And then the very end of the clip, after this one girl is like stumbling all over herself, the other one's like, yeah, I wish I was more educated. I'm like, girl, me too. Me too.
And here's the thing. These were girls. I wasn't sure if this was NYU or they were from Columbia.
It was one of the two.
Both of those schools, I want to point out, are also very competitive schools to get into. And I'm thinking to myself, why would I want my kids to go to these schools at this point?
It's just like ignorance and vocal fry.
Really?
That's the majors.
Vocal fry.
I just think it's really important to be here.
I don't know. Okay.
For the Palestine.
Yeah. There's nothing actually.
Would I have a future?
Yeah.
If I would have a brighter future if I talked like that?
Yes, you would. The protest has also evolved over time or devolved, right?
Right.
So initially it was about ceasefire, right? And
it's very anti-war.
Anti-war and the occupation. Okay, so the IDF is largely not in Gaza now. They're all down centered, obviously, in Rafah, but they haven't done any military action at the moment. So there's no fighting per se happening at this very moment, right? So then it sort of went into free Palestine, from the river to the sea. And then now which is already meaning Israel, we don't want you.
Erasure of a democratic
just wipe
country
you off
full
the map.
And then ethnically cleansed at the very least.
And our, one of our star reporters, Jessica Kostesco, she has been there now for, I think, over a week following this. She was there last night at 1 a.m. when this was happening. She managed to get in. It was very impressive and took some amazing videos. You can check it all out at freebeacon.com. The chants that she heard includes, settlers go home. Go home to where? Go home to the country you don't want to exist?
Well, the one that's popped up a couple of times is go back to Poland.
I've heard that too.
Which has some real implications considering it's the home of
they're not the Nazis, by the way. The Israelis the Jews are the Nazis here. They're not the Nazis, but go back to Poland.
Another university worth commending, because I do want to point out the ones that are doing a good job. University of Chicago has always been good on speech. And because it has principles and because it knows what speech is and what speech isn't, it makes it much easier for them to manage these things. So a statement from that university: free expression is the core animating value of the University of Chicago. So it is critical that we be clear about how I and my administration think about the issue of encampments, how the actions we take in response will follow directly from our principles and specific considerations that will influence our judgment and actions. So the students are going to know what is expected of them. The general principle we will abide by is to provide the greatest leeway possible for free expression, even expression of viewpoints that some find deeply offensive. We only will intervene when what might have been an exercise of free expression blocks the learning or expression of others, or that substantially disrupts the functioning or safety of the university. These are our principles. They are clear. So good on Chicago for knowing how free speech works and making the boundaries clear. And that's the magic potion, guys.
Yeah. And same thing with Ben Sass down in the University of Florida.
Yep.
You can have your free speech. That's great. But once you get into the territory of really threatening others or, and students feeling threatened, another thing is, press is now being banned from campus because they've been told it's not safe. If it's not safe, why is the NYPD not doing anything about it? Because remember, the
No,
NYPD they're
it's both
waiting
mostly
outside.
peaceful and not safe enough for press, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
It's shocking. And you do want to, all these kids, you just want to know, have you read the mission statement for like Students for Justice in Palestine,
Ooh,
by
they're
any
bad.
means necessary, by any means necessary, as they say. And as you mentioned, what specifically they want to divest from. Do they actually know these things? And I don't know. I
No,
understand.
I just think it's really important to be here, to stand in solidarity.
Yeah, and half these people, of course, are not even students, right? Because they have all these. It's been infiltrated. They've been saying other people have been saying that student IDs have been handed around from person to person to get all these other people inside. The janitors inside that were being held temporarily against their will. This is ridiculous. So I don't know how it ends, but there is
Just
something.
hedge fund managers' children holding janitors hostage on an elite college campus for the little people. That's who they are.
There's something very, very disturbing going on at a deeper level with these kids. I mean, obviously, it's not all the kids. There's some kids there who just want to take their finals
there's
and go
so many
home.
normies. This is like, even on college campuses, there are so many normies, right?
Yeah, sure.
Josh Barrow wrote a piece today explaining how little the general public, and even the general public in these age cohorts, cares about the things that these loudest actors talk about all the time.
Yeah.
It's just not representative of basically anyone.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what it ends up representative of is the most successful parts of these elite universities, who then get promoted to tell the rest of us what to do in every corner of our lives. Corporations, newspapers, media, all those places.
Right. They don't change when they get into the real world. They are altering the real world.
Yes.
This is why we have all these DEI initiatives, which is, billions of dollars worth, of programs and administrators across the country now going right into the military as well. At Columbia University, for example, one of the things that they want to draw students to, encourage high schoolers to apply is they say that they want them to be these agents for change and act. This is what they want it to be, as opposed to generally either learning or, I guess, if you're in the South, going to football games and drinking. No, I'm just kidding. But it's part of the experience. This experience is about being activists.
This is the trinity of a Southern school, is like a few books, a lot of football, and some drinking. Yes.
Right. I will take that.
It's a great experience, I got to tell you. Also, to come out pretty much debt-free because it's much cheaper. Bang for your buck, a great place.
And you avoid the brainwashing because, as you see here, you have these faculty members now locked arm in arm to protect the students, as they say, and prevent the police from coming in. Mary Catherine, I had a line in my little notes here that says, these kids are getting worked up over the most ridiculous things, and they're all upset about the police presence, and it's true. And some of them are saying that the Jewish students are wrong for wanting police because it makes them feel unsafe to have police.
Of course.
There.
No, this is the beauty of being a lefty protester, is that you can have all the safetyism rhetoric you want, and you can tell everyone that they can't make you feel unsafe with their words while you're telling them you want to murder them.
Yeah, that's right.
Or actually physically assaulting them, and they're like, "Oh, the police presence is making me feel unsafe."
Oh,
by
and
the way, I didn't
yeah.
do that one with Vocal Cry. That's a Vocal Cry. That was a different character. But it reminded me that as a good capitalist, I should start an Instagram course that explains how to get rid of your vocal fry and upspeak and become like me.
But vocal fry is kind of a selling point too, isn't it?
I know, because to be in these halls of power,
a little bit.
It is a DEI. It's like a social and emotional learning voice.
Yeah.
You gotta have it.
It is. But I in my notes, I said it's not Kent State. Now I think it might be turning into that. So my question to you is, how is this going to end? How do you think this is going to, I hate to make you, play Nostradamus here, but.
No, I think a place like Columbia, I worry about genuinely, because the ship seems to have sailed here. Like, I don't know any one of these situations, including, by the way, January 6th, if it is repelled quickly, does not build on itself, right? And the reason I bring up January 6th is because that's always their analogy. But there's a similar analogous part about the response, which is that if you get something under control quickly, as far as the non-speech parts of it,
Yeah.
it does not spread. It's
Yeah.
less likely to become a mob.
Yeah.
Mob mentality is less likely to take over. And so in a place like Colombia, these people have shown themselves to be manifestly unfit to run a university.
Yeah.
Jonathan Turley was just on TV saying, you need buildings to run a university. And what Colombia has decided is that they will forsake their buildings, tell everybody to go remote, surrender to this very small faction of students. And I don't know how you turn back from that. And once you've lost deterrence, you have to go so hard on the force required to break up these groups.
Yeah, like calling National Guard hard.
Then it can become violent because there have to be clashes between two groups if you're occupying a building or if you're being threatening or violent, right? And like I agree with the idea that there can be police overreach in situations like that. More importantly, there can just be mistakes made because these are volatile situations, and I don't want people put in those positions, which is why these idiots should have started earlier. However,
I was thinking the same thing.
I do think, there's models for doing this well, which we have mentioned. And I think if most of the universities can take a page from the University of Florida's and University of Georgia's, Texas, I should say the governor's tweet wasn't helpful for the University of Texas's attempts to quell encampments there because his specifically referenced content and said that people like anti-Semitism was not welcome.
Yeah.
Time, place, manner. You can police those. But I think there are models for doing this well. And if a lot of universities undertake those models, we could come out of this okay.
Right.
Because over the summer, maybe things will chill out a little bit until they have to go back to campus.
Right.
But yeah, there's also a part of me that's like, when people say it is going to be Kent State, I'm a little bit like, well, which side is cosplaying 68? Which side is LARPing 68? Is it me? Because I don't feel like I am.
Right.
I feel like a lot of people are.
Right.
So
it's interesting. And I think we talked about this before and how, the political ramifications of this are, what side do people put when they see this unrest? I think the vast majority, again, it's like the silent majority in the late 60s, early 70s, who think, okay, this is they're not all there on board with all of this. And the vast majority of Americans, or a majority of Americans, support Israel, for example, in what they're doing. They're going to think that Biden's a part of the problem, and so I mean, it again, like I said, it puts them in a bad place. But what I had the same concern, which is the confrontation that is happening now with the police. All it takes is for one guy or one police officer, something to accidentally go off, or some guy to say, you know what, I've had enough of this, and something happens. I also wonder, do they want something to happen, Mary Catherine?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
People want the brutality. Please,
yes.
I want to see the police brutality, then it really fires up the cause.
I think there's not a small amount of that. By the way, nothing but admiration for one of the cops on a campus. It might have been Emory, who picked up a young man, as I would my toddler, tantruming, by his one arm and one leg, and carried him off the campus. It was a full-grown man. Now, it was a full-grown liberal man, so he was like not huge, but the cop was very strong. And he just picked him up and he walked him calmly off of the quad while the full-grown male protesters, like, not that I would know his gender if I hadn't had an interaction with him, but he's just screaming, "You're hurting me! You're hurting me!"
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, say fantastic if he's being hurt. That would be terrible. But
no, he's just saying it, so
dramatic,
it's on
but they
tape.
do this. Yeah, exactly. No, they do this. I'll say this. So as much as they like to carry that banner of being anti-war, and as we talked about, they're actually very aggressive. And
yes, quite.
It's like they all secretly, like, they hate the police state, and they're going after the police and the National Guard and everybody else, and making them feel unsafe, and they hate them. And yet they are all secretly want to be a part of some sort of Maoist paramilitary youth group, right?
Oh,
They're pretending to play soldier. They wear the masks. They have the chants. They took over a building.
Although, and maybe this is like the Maoists. When it gets right down to it, they mostly just stifle you with their own form of bureaucracy. Because all these ridiculous requests and the way they run these encampments.
Yeah, wait till you see how they want to set up a government of their own or something.
Oh my gosh, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
As I said today on TV, it's more serious than just being embarrassing. but both students and administration should be embarrassed. This is humiliating
Yeah.
performance by everyone. Let me close with a clip of Karine Jean-Pierre. You noted that one of the smarter members of the administration, and I think also John Kirby, said, hey, like maybe not taking over buildings and keeping other people
Right.
from learning. KJP, someone asked, CBS's reporter asked if the administration had been in touch with anyone at Columbia. So let's just hear this masterful answer.
Yeah. Is the answer no? The administration has not been in touch with anyone at Columbia.
I don't have any readout. I should have answered that, and I believe that was Jeff's question. I don't have any calls to read out to you of conversations with any university leaders at this time. Obviously, the president's going to go speak at Morehouse, and so we've been in touch with them because he's going to deliver a commencement speech. He's looking forward to doing that. It is such an important moment in time for graduates, and he's going to go obviously to West Point. Those are the two that he's doing.
Oh man, feel sorry for those kids.
Oh, I said, first of all, great answer, KJP.
Also, I wonder, not having seen the video, I am picturing her fluttering her eyelids a mile a minute.
Flipping through that binder.
That's the nervous sign when she does the fluttering of the eyelids.
That's true. I said, to be fair, there were a lot of parties to attend this weekend. So how could she possibly have learned an answer before now? Which brings us to
the White
House Correspondents Dinner. Everyone was in town here in DC this weekend. I often end up out of town, not really on purpose, but no one has invited me to this shindig in quite a long time.
It's called luck.
So I'm happy to be out while it's going on. Now, that being said, I have had my share of fun at various parties over the years. I don't mind a party. In fact, the one I sort of missed that I would have gone to was the Substack party. That one looked fun. I like the folks over there, the good free speech folks over at Substack. Yes, but it does seem like it's the White House Correspondents Dinner during the Trump years took a big nosedive, and even some years it didn't exist.
Right.
And the president refused to go to it. And honestly, I think it was probably good for the press and for the dinner that it got knocked down many pegs during those years, because it was all getting a little much.
Yeah. As we call it here in town, the nerd prom.
Nerd prom.
The nerd prom. And, it used to be where all these big celebrities would come in, particularly during the Obama years.
Yeah.
Right? Even
that was when it hit its zenith of insufferability.
George Clooney, Tom Cruise. I mean, you name it. They were all here because most amazing, president of all time ever. Mm-hmm. And I can't imagine that the comedian's going to say anything really mean, to the greatest president of all time. Whereas during the Trump years, it was just this one big giant pile-on. So why would Trump want to attend that? So he didn't. It's not, I don't miss it. I miss the ones from back in the day, right? Yeah. I had gone in the early 2000s, I think, late 90s. In fact, I went to some of the correspondence dinners during the Clinton and Bush years, and they were quite fun. I will say this, people forget that there was a White House Correspondents Dinner in the 90s, and the entertainment for the evening was Don Imus, right?
Oh, goodness.
And he went after the Clintons so bad. And, Hillary Clinton is, this is after Paula Jones and all these, the bimbo eruptions, as they called them.
Right.
And they're sitting there on the dais with that, pained, smile on their face, trying to pretend it's funny. And people, and even the press, they were feeling uncomfortable about it.
Right.
So ultimately what happened is the White House Correspondents Association, like a year or two later, decided we're not going to have any comedian because it was so hurtful, to the president who we're covering. Yeah. And instead they had musical entertainment. And that wasn't bad. It was Aretha Franklin. I saw that.
Oh,
but I mean,
happy to be there for that.
But the idea that they, because you don't want to offend the president,
No, it's a weird thing because, look, it can get uncomfortable because the person up there, if they're, I don't really know what the job of the person up there on the dais is, frankly.
Mm-hmm. It should be a pseudo roast.
It's sort of a roast, right? Yeah. Except the people you're roasting are uniquely bad at being roasted because they are all very full of themselves.
Yeah.
And this is when like the term nerd prom sort of connotes, this is the chance for these people to have the fancy sort of Hollywood night that they feel they don't usually get. They feel they deserve it. And
they sure
so
do.
when you tell the jokes that roast those people. There's a lot of groaning.
Mhm.
There's a lot of discomfort. I sort of enjoy it. I was at the last one I went to was when Michelle Wolf did
Oh, that's more recent than
the
me.
dinner. Yes, it was. I can't remember which year, but Michelle Wolf did it. And what I appreciated about her is that she made a Ted Kennedy's a murderer joke, and I was like, yes, I'm the only person in there standing clapping.
No, I bet you a lot of people
hilarious.
Like that is not funny, Mary Catherine.
Loved it. Loved it.
I had, one of my favorite White House Correspondents dinners was when the entertainment was Daryl Hammond from Saturday Night Live.
Oh, that's
at
a
the
good
time.
one.
He does terrific impressions. He did
No,
Clinton,
and that's the kind of thing that I don't mean to. I'm not
Gore.
I'm not impersonating. I'm not. Excuse me. I'm not roasting him. But impressions are like a crowd pleasing, a little bit anodyne thing that I think is that crowd is more comfortable with.
Right. And it's funny because Hammond then he was making his jokes, talked about how long it took him to perfect Al Gore. And then he turns to Bush and is like, and then you beat the guy, So now what am I supposed to do? But he did a very brief Chris Matthews impression that we thought at our table at the Standard was hilarious. And a lot of the press were nervous. Like, I don't want to be seen. I don't want Chris Matthews to know that I'm laughing at this joke. So they don't. It was amazing how much
Chris Matthews is a cartoon character. How could you not?
It is amazing.
Him?
And the strangest thing, the one strange thing that happened to me, and then I actually have a confession. I'm going to put it here out on the table. So this is going to get interesting. But the first part is, Ozzy Osbourne was one of the guests, and I happened to be sitting along the main pathway, and he was walking back from who knows where. We make eye contact, and he comes right over to me and goes, "Oh, like this," and shakes his hands in front of my face. And then he comes over and shakes my hand, and then continues on his way.
Wow!
And I was like, "Wow, that was crazy." And they're like, "Do you know it?" I said, "No, it was very random." Okay.
So let me ask this because the celebrity part about this is interesting. We don't get that much exposure to these folks,
right? Real celebrities.
What is the kind? Well, and that is the thing about this event. It does attract some real celebrities. I think was Chris Pine at this one.
Oh, really?
I mean, I'd be into that. My question is, what kind of celebrity do you want to encounter at an event like that? And don't make it too perfect.
No. I mean, that's a good question. I don't know. Sometimes if you're a mega celebrity, I wouldn't want to go up to them because what are you going to say or do unless you could? I would love a celebrity who's at somewhere between A and a B that you could sort of joke around with and then become friends with. I mean, so I was in a room once and Harrison Ford and his then wife walked into the room and it was so awkward. They're going, like, what are they doing? The press is mobbing them. I'm not going to go up and say hi. Right.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the great comedian, actor Larry Miller was a guest of ours one year. So I was
that's
hanging,
a great one.
And so he was at our table and we hung out the whole night. And then people would come up to him and then he'd introduce me to, the people that go up because they all know each other. So that was really nice.
Yeah. I'm sort of with you. It's nice to see people. It's sort of surreal to see like very, very famous people.
Yeah.
But really, like, I like a really good character actor that from a few weird things.
Yeah.
I ran at one of these events. I met Ricky Schroeder, and that was very exciting for me because I think I had a crush on him since Silver Spoon. So that was like a nice one for me. But yeah, that's like if I run into a celebrity at an airport or wherever, I would much rather it be like a Melrose Place actor than Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'd rather see.
That's right.
So, now I'll make a few exceptions for the really big stars. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson I'd love to run into. Dolly Parton, obviously.
Oh.
Ludacris, goes without saying. Jennifer Garner is very famous and seems totally normal, and I would really like to hang out with her. So those are like my big stars that I'd be like,
okay,
sure. Let me hang.
So in one of the parties, I did get a chance. David Skinner and my old friend David Skinner and I met Edie Falco during The Sopranos. Not Edie Falco, excuse me. No, Lorraine Bracco.
Oh, how dare
Dr.
you.
Melfi. And she was very sweet. But one time, our friend Matt Labash, he saw Joe Pantoliano, Joey Pants, the actor, and Chris Maloney from Law & Order.
Oh, I like Chris Maloney.
They were talking to each other. And of course, Labash happened to remember they were both in a short-lived flop sitcom called The Finelli Brothers. And he came up to them and Labash puts his hands on both their shoulders. He goes, "Hey, it's the Finelli Brothers."
That's amazing.
They both laughed. Okay.
I think that, by the way, once I was waited on in Hollywood, in LA, by an actress who I knew from, and most of you will know from, Home Alone. And she was the sister or the cousin who said, "You're what the French call les incompetents." Okay. And I knew
waited on you, or she was.
I knew that was her. However, I knew everyone told her they knew her from Home Alone if they knew her.
Okay.
And I happened to know she had also starred in Spanglish.
Wow.
Alongside Adam Sandler. And so that is what I mentioned when I saw her.
I bet they love that. They love the more obscure reference because they know that you actually follow them.
But I definitely knew her from Les Incompetents.
Okay, can I have to give you, I've never talked about this really.
Oh,
I might have said it once in private,
okay,
probably to my wife, but this is a White House Correspondents Dinner confession now.
Okay.
Right? This is,
I have one too, so you go first.
Okay. So at one of those parties, I had the pleasure of meeting the actress Jill Hennessy, who she was in a few movies here and there, but then she became popular on an NBC drama called Crossing Jordan.
Okay.
She's very nice.
Yes.
So we had a wonderful chat about a movie that she was in, and she was so modest and humble, and she was like, "Oh, you wouldn't know it." And I said, "Oh, Exit Wounds." And I said, "Oh, yeah, that's with DMX." "Yeah, that's it." So she lit up. We had a great time. I think everything's going great. There was a photographer from, I think, The Hill, said, "Oh, let's get a picture of you all." And she's there, I think, with a friend. And I said, "Oh, great." And so I put my hand on her, like, shoulder back. You know how, you put normally you get pictures, you put your arms around the people, right?
Right.
And then it occurred to me, my hand was on her bare, she had one of those.
Oh, she had like a strap. Yeah.
So now my hand is on her upper bare back. And I realized this because suddenly I felt her stiffen. And then I'm doing like the half touch, just a little bit of a touch kind of. And then it doesn't occur to you until it's happening. Oh, this is awkward, right? And as soon as the picture was taken, it was kind of just a little bit of abrupt sort of, okay, bye.
Bye.
But I was not, and I have, if Jill Hennessy ever listens to the show, I have to tell you, I was not trying to me to you there.
Yeah, you weren't being a creep.
It was an accident.
He wasn't being a creep.
Thank you, MK. It was just awkward. I didn't.
Okay, here's my confession. Many years ago, when I was a young lady coming up in this business, and there was some party. I wasn't invited to the White House Correspondents Dinner, I don't think, but there was some party afterwards that we were going to because we had all the time in the world and no children. So all my friends and I were showing up at these shindigs.
Those were the days.
And I also was not invited to this shindig, whatever it was. But I went up to the list lady, and someone had told me, or I can't remember what it was. I think someone told me, just say you're Emily Heil. Emily Heil is a gossip reporter for the Washington Post, maybe with other outlets over the years. But so I said that. Technically, that's a lie. So I'm confessing that. I said Emily Heil, and the list lady goes, "Heil, how do you spell that? H-E-I or I-E?" And I was like, "How do you think it's spelled?"
No, you're kidding me. Very Catherine.
She just laughs at me. Is like, "Go ahead."
Then the real Emily Heil got turned away later.
I think she just took pity on me.
That's amazing.
Look, I'm not that slick. I don't try to sneak in very, very often to anywhere. So I did get into that party though with Padma Lakshmi and others. So be jealous of that one.
Yeah, and again, I'm not sure what I would do. You always try to find what the peg is. Like, oh, we must know maybe we know somebody in common. Boom.
How do you think it's spelled?
Right. That's I don't think I could get away with that. I tried to go as Fred Barnes and I couldn't get in once to a
they pegged that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is just let it be a lesson to all of us to do your research first.
That's
so
right.
Fred Barnes, not Asian.
Yeah.
Emily Heil, let's learn how to spell her name.
That's right. Mary Catherine, you had
we have like no time, but let's do one more thing.
You sent me a very interesting story in the Wall Street Journal.
Yes. From the Wall Street Journal. Men's style. What's sexy, what's not? Our poll results may surprise you. This is news you can use, folks. This is news you can use. So Vic and I read over these results, and I just want to say that maybe I'm a populist now because I think the people are nailing this. Like among the smart answers, is that the highest ranked sexiest outfit for a man is just a t-shirt and jeans, like white t-shirt and jeans.
That has always been what women like. Apparently,
yes.
I hear that all the time: t-shirt and jeans.
And then very low on the lists, correctly, When we asked about footwear, dress shoes, often stiff and sweaty, won the always usually sexy vote with 34%.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, famously comfy Birkenstock sandals were deemed never or rarely sexy by 72%. And that's correct, my
Yeah.
friends.
How about if you wear white tube socks with the Birkenstocks? Would that be okay?
I mean, I think if you're hot, you can pull off a lot of things. Okay. But still, Birkenstocks with tube socks is going to be crew socks going to be a rough one.
You would have had a rough time in Germany with all the men in the Birkenstocks.
It's
quite a sight.
Not a look for me. No.
Yeah.
Was there anything that surprised you on this list?
Okay, yes. I was surprised there was no word on tank tops. I'm from Jersey, and I used to love wearing tank tops. No word. It's like it doesn't exist. Okay.
Yeah, I like a tank top. I'm not averse to a tank top.
But the ones back in the day, they were very loose, and now there's obviously form fitting is back in style. They had an interesting take on buttons. I do agree with how many, 1 or 2 buttons down.
Yes. What was the majority? I think the majority was for 2 buttons.
Yeah,
undone.
But it raises the question: what do you have to offer? Because depending on your shape, you might not want 2 buttons. I will tell you this. I had a colleague, or I should say we had a colleague, no name, and he used to do a full at least 3 buttons.
3 buttons seems excessive.
And it was scary because I just didn't want to accidentally look down because you would not be able to unsee that.
Well, and three buttons is a 1978 party vibe. Like that's not an office vibe.
Right. No, that's Bernard Henri Lévy, right? I think he was 4 buttons down.
Yeah, I think 3 is excessive. A 2 is fine. 1 I feel like is pretty buttoned up, which is I guess where that expression comes from. It means what it means. So yeah, I agree with 2. I was surprised that, let me find it, the answer on, and I had never thought of this before, but it says 52% deemed red clothes on men rarely or never sexy.
Yes.
That's a large number.
Do you agree, though?
I think I do.
Yeah.
And this is from a University of Georgia graduate, so I make an exception for football uniforms and jerseys, obviously.
All right, sure.
However, outside of a fandom situation, I don't know that I'm looking for a man wearing like a red jacket. It's very flashy.
Right. And it's funny, my father-in-law gave some, wanted to donate to, some outfits to, my son, and they're interesting colored jackets.
Yeah.
And, one is green and the other one was kind of a dark reddish, maroonish jacket. And from time to time, my son would put it on and I'd say, tell me what I won. What's the grand prize? Because it's like a game show.
It is. It's that's a strange vibe.
Yeah. Although it's the thought that counts. I have a red sweater and I may wear it once or twice during the Christmas holidays.
I think Christmas is a pass.
But I don't even I'm always a little reluctant to put it on. So there's something to that. And I do agree on the jewelry thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm from Jersey. I had a friend who loved to wear necklaces, and it's a slippery slope. 1, suddenly it's 2, and then you're unbuttoned. It's a whole show.
Oh, that is a whole thing. Yeah,
it is.
It's 47% found men's jewelry to be relatively unsexy.
Yeah. My daughter, she is a very tough fashion critic. And sometimes I'll wear something that she thinks like it's a sweater that looks too feminine. Mm-hmm. Like if I just put a sweater on without an undershirt, just put a sweater on, she'll laugh about that. And I'll say, oh, come on, it's not that bad.
Teen girls are rough. Man.
They are very rough. Yeah. And you know what she says to me? She'll say, well, it's a look. That's what she says.
I have to congratulate my dad because he accidentally stumbled into a look, which is that he's, wearing the standard Navy New Balance dad shoes that are kind of chunky. And it turns out those are very in right now. So the last time I saw him, I was like, Daddy, those are super in these days.
He's with it.
I disagreed with the people on the facial hair. So the people, 44% believe that clean shaven is their sexiest version. 26% goes to stubble, which I think is a little, I don't mind stubble, but I think it's a little dated right now. Like that was a 10 years ago thing.
The stubble moment is passing.
Yes. The new moment that we are in actually is beard and mustache moment. And those got low marks, 22% for beard, which is like, come on. And 8 for mustache. Now, look, I believe I'm probably an outlier on this, but I like a mustache. And my husband often has like a ridiculous like Sam Elliott style.
Yeah, I was going to say Village People, but I'll give him Sam Elliott.
Yeah, let's go. I think he would prefer that, and we do want to
Right.
stay on his good side.
Yeah, that's true. Not Freddie Mercury or whoever. Okay, that's
but
fine.
like I like a mustache, but more than that, I do like a beard, and I think a lot of women like a beard.
Okay, again, it really depends.
Yeah.
What else do you have to offer?
Yeah.
And can you even grow one? Look at me. I haven't shaved in a month. No, I'm just kidding. I shaved this morning. If I were to try to grow a mustache and beard, I would look like Ho Chi Minh. So I just don't. I'm just not into that.
You're never going to pass as Fred Barnes that way.
No, definitely not.
And then this one is important. What about the shorts length?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So 64% of those surveyed said moderate just above the knee cuts are sexiest, while truly short and below knee options earned an unimpressive 19 and 17% of the vote, respectively. Let me ask this. Okay. I think we can all
ask.
Like, it's very Goldilocks-y, right? Like the middle is fine. But let's say this. Say you can't have moderate cut. Do you go high or low? Like you're prohibited.
Okay, I get it. I'm not ashamed of my legs. I've been doing my jump squats. I can show them off. But I would probably have to say low because the short ones are not that comfortable, and you don't know what's going to happen. Something could, and that it's quite a sight. I oftentimes look down and realize I sort of have shorts that go below the knee, but it's only because they're hanging down and I need a belt. I'm losing weight. No,
I need a belt. No,
I do. Otherwise, I think my shorts probably are just about the length of the knee with a cargo shorts because I need pockets. I need pockets.
Oh, you're a cargo shorts guy. I think I would prefer shorter to longer if I were to choose. Like I think middle of the road is fine. Yeah, but I like this new trend where if you have a set of legs, you can do not a super long inseam. We'll all survive. We're not prudes in this country. What is this puritanical inseam thing about? And I think below the knee ends up looking very like 90s middle school.
I was gonna say that was like late 80s, early 90s, where it's like intentionally long. Mine are unintentionally long.
Oh gosh, remember the basketball short?
Oh yeah,
switcheroo in the 90s. That was such a controversial thing.
It was big. Yeah,
the things we used to worry about in the culture wars. Are these basketball shorts out of hand?
I know.
Someday we'll probably look back at this stuff and say it was silly too. Anyway, so that's how to be sexy, guys. We have solved it for you.
Oh, and black.
Summer.
Black.
Wear
black is good.
Wear black.
I'm not wearing black. I'm wearing gray, but black.
One more thing. Sexiest body part for men to reveal. Little bit of bicep is what the folks say.
Yeah. Well, again, and it depends on what you have to offer. If you have them, show them off.
So you're telling what we decided is that regardless of the poll, being hot is sexier than not.
Yeah, you can pretty much wear whatever you want. I mean, you could look like a ragamuffin. I don't know. And you would be like, oh, that guy's amazing.
There's that
and
guy.
They could pull it off. If you go to a store in a mall, the mannequins that are very well sculpted mannequins for men, and you're like, oh, I want to wear that. Oh, it doesn't look the same.
Doesn't look the same. I do think, though, there's that guy on Twitter who got so famous after Elon took over for some reason because he ended up in everybody's For You, and his name is @DieWorkwear, DIE Workwear.
Okay.
And he just talks about men's fashion. And some people... He's clever. He's interesting. Some people hate him because they've been served this guy all the time and they are not interested in this.
Right.
But he has a lot of interesting thoughts about how well-tailored things, no matter what your shape is, are going to improve your look. So
yes, well-tailored.
You can escape the hot or not paradigm with some decent choices. But yeah, those are some guidelines about how to be sexy this summer. You're welcome, everybody.
There you go. Mary Catherine, we're going to have to. Our next episode, we got to catch up on what's going on with the President of the United States. Lots of things. So,
he thinks occupying buildings is basically sort of not great. So we
well, there's that. Yeah. And his polls, the polls. I have a call out for you.
Okay.
And the call out is to listener Hugh Hewitt. Yes, so not just the fetching Mrs. H, but Hugh Hewitt himself. He had me on his show this morning.
Oh, how nice!
So he called. He DM'd me and said, can you do like the 6:33 a.m. slot? Sometimes you've done it. You get up early. He says, I don't know if you can do that. And I said, I can do it from time to time. And then all of a sudden, his producer Dwayne is calling me saying, "Okay, well, 5 minutes." And I was what? And he said, "I don't care what you're wearing. and I didn't realize there would be a video component to it. So thank goodness I put on a shirt. That would have been interesting, and did a show. And thank you, Mary Catherine, for warning me about questions. He can just throw out questions for you. And he threw out the question of, did I know what Mayberry RFD was? And thank goodness I did. That is the sequel to the Andy Griffith Show.
Yeah, I knew Mayberry, but I was having trouble placing that.
Rural-free delivery. So there you go. So thank you, Hugh, for having me on the show. That wraps up this episode of Getting Hammered. Remember, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube, and you can follow me on Twitter at Victorina Mattis.
I'm at MK Hammer on Twitter, at MK Hammer Time on Instagram. You can follow the show at Getting Hammered Podcast on YouTube and Instagram, and you should. Thanks for getting hammered responsibly. Remember to take your SOLs. Don't skip school, kids. Until next week. This has been a Nebulous Media Podcast.